Hi all, I'm Pushp Sirohi and back with one more amazing article on paper on Hinduism. Read at the Parliament on 19th September 1893. Let's enjoy. Three religions now stand in the world which have come down to us from time prehistoric: Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and Judaism. They have all received tremendous shocks, and all of them prove by their survival their internal strength. But while Judaism failed to absorb Christianity and was driven out of its place of birth by its all conquering daughter, and a handful of Parsis is all that remains to tell the tale of their grand religion. Sect after sector across in India and seemed to shake the religion of the Vedas its very foundations. But like the waters of the seashore in tremendous earthquake, it received only for a while, only to return in all-absorbing flood, a thousand times more vigorous. And when the tumult of the rush was over, these sects were all sucked in, absorbed, and assimilated into the immense body of the mother faith. From the higher spiritual flights of the Vedanta philosophy, of which the latest discoveries of science seems like echoes, to the low ideas of idolatry and its multifarious methodology, the agnosticism of Buddhists, and the atheism of the Jain, each of all have a place in Hindu's religion. Where then the question arises, where is the common center to which all these widely diverging radi converge? Where is the common basis upon which all these seemingly hopeless contradictions rest? And this is the question I shall attempt to answer. The Hindu have received their religion through revelation, the Vedas. They holy that the Veda are without beginning and without end. It may sound ludicrous to the audience. How a book can be a without beginning or end. But by the Vedas, no books are meant. They mean the accumulated treasury of a spiritual law discovered by different person in different times. Just as the law of gravitation existed before its discovery and would exist if all humanity forgot it, so it with the law and the govern the spiritual world. The moral, ethical, and spiritual relations between soul and between individual spirits and the Father of all spirits were there before their discovery and would remain even if we forgot them. The discoverers of these laws are called rishis, and we honor them as perfected beings. I'm glad to tell this audience that some of the very greatest of them were women. Here it may be said, and these laws as laws may be without end, but they must have had a beginning. The Vedas teach us the creation is without beginning or end. Science is said to had proved that the sum total of cosmic energy is always the same. Then if there was a time when nothing existed, where was all this manifested energy? Some says it was a potential from on God. In that case, God is sometimes potential and sometimes kinetic, which would make him mutable. Everything mutable is a compound, and everything compound must undergo the change which is called destruction. So God would die, which is absurd. Therefore, there never was a time when there was no creation. If I may be allowed to use a smile, creation and creator are two lines without beginning and without end, running parallel to each other. God is ever active providence, by whose power systems after systems are being evolved out of chaos, made to run for a time and again destroyed. This is what the Brahmin boy repeat every day. The sun and the moon the Lord created like the sun and moons of previous cycles, and this is agreed with modern science. Here I stand, and if I shut my eyes and try to conceive my existence, what is the idea before me? The idea of a body. Am I? Then nothing but a combination of material substance. The Vedas declare, no, I am a spirit living in a body. I am not the body will die, but I shall not die. Here I am in the body. It will fall, but I shall go on living. I had also a past. The soul was not created, for creation means a combination, which means a certain future dissolution. If then the soul was created, it must die. Some are born happy, enjoy perfect health with beautiful body, mental vigor and all wants supplied. Others are born miserable. Some are without hands or feet. Others again are idiots and only drag on a wretched existence. Why, if they are all created, why does a little and merciful God create one happy and another unhappy? Why is he so partial? Nor would it matter in the least to hold that those who are miserable in this life will be happy in a future one. Why should a man be miserable even here in the region of just and merciful God? In the second place, the idea of creator God does not explain the anomaly, but simply expresses the cruel fate of all powerful being. There must have been causes then before his birth to make a man miserable or happy, and those were his past actions. Are not all the tendencies of the mind and the body accounted for by inherited aptitude? Here are two parallel lines of existence, one of the mind and the other of matter. If matter and its transformations answer for all that we have, there is no necessity for supporting the existence of a soul, but it cannot be proved that thou has been evolved out of matter. And if a philosophical monism is inevitable, spiritual monism is certainly logical and no less desirable than a mentalistic monoism. But neither of these is necessary here. We cannot deny that body requires certain tendencies from heredity, but those tendencies are only mean the physical configuration through which a peculiar mind alone can act in a peculiar way. The other tendencies peculiar to be soul caused by its past actions. And a soul with a certain tendency would be the law of affinity take birth in a body which is the fittest instrument for the display for that tendency. This is in accord with science, for science want to explain everything by habit, and habit is got through repetitions. So repetitions are necessary to explain the natural habit of a newborn soul. And since they were not obtained in the present life, they must have come down for the past lives. There is another suggestion. Take all these for granted. How is that I do not remember anything of my past life that can be easily explained? I'm not speaking English or Hindi. I'm speaking a general language. It is not my mother tongue. In fact, no words of my mother tongue are now present in my consciousness. But let me try to bring them up. And the ration that shows the consciousness is only the surface of mental ocean, and within its depths are stored up all our experiences. Try and struggle. Thy would come when you would be conscious even in your past life. This is direct and demonstrative evidence. Verification is perfection, proof of a theory. And here is the challenge thrown to the world by rishis. We have discovered the secret by which the very depth of the ocean of memory can be stirred up. Try it and you would get a complete reminiscence of your past life. So then the Hindu believes that he is a spirit. Him the sword cannot pierce. Him the fire cannot burn. Him the water cannot melt. Him the air cannot dry. The Hindu believes that every soul is a circle whose circumference is nowhere but whose center is located in the body, and that death means the change of this center from body to the body. But nor is the soul bound by the conditions of matter. In its very essence, it's free, unbounded, holy, pure, and perfect. But somehow or other, it finds itself tied down to matter and thinks of itself as matter. Why should the free, perfect, and pure being be thus under the trammelon of matter? Is the next question. How can the perfect soul be deluded into the belief that it's imperfect? We have been told that the Hindus shirk the questions, say that no such questions can be there. Some thinkers want to answer it by position one or more quasi perfect being, and use big scientific names to fill up the gap. But the naming is not explaining. The question remains the same: how can the perfect become the quasi perfect? How can the pure, the absolute, change even a microscopic particle of its nature? But the Hindu is sincere. He does not want to take shelter under sophistry. He is the brave enough to face the questions in manly fashion. And his answer is, I don't know. I do not know how the perfect being, the soul, came to think of itself as imperfect, as joined to the condition by matter. But the fact is a fact for all that. It is a fact in everybody's consciousness that one thinks of oneself as a body. The Hindu does not attempt to explain why one thinks is the body. The answer, that is the will of God, is no explanation. This is nothing more than what the Hindu says: I do not know. Well, then, the human soul is eternal and immortal, perfect and infinite, and that means only a change of center from one body to another. The present is determined by our past actions, and the future by the present. Soul will go on evolving up by reverting back from birth to birth and death to death. But here is another question: is man a tiny boat in a tempest, raised one moment on the foam crest of a billow and dashed down into the yawning charm the next, rolling to the flow and the mercy of good and bad actions? A powerless, helpless wreck in never raging, ever rushing, uncompromising current of cause and effect. A little moth placed under the wheel of calculations, which rolls on crushing everything on its way and waits for not for the widow's tears or the orphan's cry. The heart sink at the idea. Yet this is the law of nature. Is there no hope? Is there no escape? Was the cry for went up for the bottom to the heart of despair? It reached the throne of mercy, and words of hope and consolations come down and inspired a Vedic sage. And he stood up before the world and in trumped voice, consolations come down and inspired a Vedic sage, proclaim the glad tidings. Hear, ye are children of immortal bliss, even ye that reside in higher spheres. I have found the ancient one who is beyond all darkness, all delusion. Knowing him alone, you shall be saved from death over again. Children of immortal bliss. What a sweet, what a hopeful name. Allow me to call you brethren by that sweet name, heirs of immortal bliss. Yeah, the Hindu refused to call you sinner. You are the children of God, the shares of immortal bliss. Holy and perfect being, ye divinity on earth, sinners. It is a sin to call a man so. It is a standing libel on human nature. Come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep. You are soul immortal, spirit free, blessed and eternal. Ye are not matter, ye are not bodies. Matter is that you are servant, not you the servant of matter. Thus it is that the Vedas proclaim not a dreadful combination of unforgiving laws, not an endless prison of causes and effects, but that at the head of all these laws, in the through every particle of matter and force, stand one by whose command the wind blows, the fire burns, the cloud rains, and death stalks upon the earth. In what is his nature? He is everywhere, the pure and formless one, the Almighty and All Merciful. Thou art our Father, Thou art our Mother, Thou art our beloved friends, Thou art the source of all strengths. Give us strength. Thou art He that breathe and burden of the universe. Help me bear the little burden of this life. Thus sang the Rishi of the Vedas. And how to worship Him through love. He is to be worshipped as the one beloved, dearer than everything in this and the next life. This is the doctrine of love declared in the Vedas, and let us see how it's fully developed and taught by Krishna, whom the Hindus believe to have been God incarnate on earth. He taught that a man ought to live in this world like a lotus leaf, which grows in water but is never moistened by water. So a man ought to live in the wood, his heart to God and his hands to work. It is good to love God for hope of reward in or the next world, but it's better to love God for love's sake. And the prayer goes, Lord, I do not want wealth, nor children, nor learning. If it be a thy will, I shall go from birth to birth, but grant me this, that I may love thee without the hope of reward. Love unselfishly, for love's sake. One of the disciples of Krishna, then the Emperor of India, was driven from his kingdom by the enemies and had to take shelter with his queen in forest in the Himalayas. And the one day of the queen asked him how it was that he, the most virtuous of men, should suffer so much misery. Yudhishthira answered, Behold, my queen, the Himalaya, how grand and beautiful they are. I love them. They do not give me anything, but my nature is to love the grand, the only object to be loved. My nature is to love him, and therefore I love. I do not pray for anything, I do not ask for anything. Let him place me wherever he likes. I must love him for love's sake. I cannot trade in love. The Vedas teach that the soul is divine, only hell is the bondage of matter. Perfection will be reached when this bond will burst, and the world they use of it is therefore mukti, the freedom. Freedom from the bond of imperfection, freedom for the death and misery. And the bondage can only fall off through the mercy of God. And the mercy comes on the pure, so purity is the condition of his mercy. How does that mercy act? He reveals himself to the pure heart, the pure and the stainless see God, yeah, even in this life. Then and then only all crookedness of the heart is made straight, and all doubt cease. He is no more the freak of terrible law of cautions. This is a very center, the very vital conception of Hinduism. The Hindu does not want to live upon words and theories. If there are existence beyond the ordinary sensuous existence, he wants to come face to face with them. If there is a soul in him which is not matter, if there is an all merciful universal soul, he will go to him direct, he must see him, and that alone can destroy all doubts. So, the best proof of Hindu sage gives about the soul, about God is, I have seen the soul, I have seen God. And that is the only condition of perfection. The Hindu religion does not consist in struggles and attempts to believe a certain doctrine or dogma, but in realizing, not in believing, but in being and becoming. Thus, the whole object of their systems is by constant struggle to become perfect, to become divine, to reach God and see God. And this is reaching God, seeing God become perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect, constitutes the religion of the Hindus. And what become of a man when he attains perfection? He lives a life of bliss infinite. He enjoys infinite and perfect bliss, having obtained the only thing in which man ought to have pleasure, namely God, and enjoy the bliss with God. So far, all the Hindus are agreed this is the common religion of all sects of India. But then perfection is absolute, and the absolute cannot be two or three. It cannot have qualities. It cannot be an individual. And so, when a soul becomes perfect and absolute, it must become one with Brahman. And it would only realize the Lord as the perfection, the reality of its own nature and existence, the existence absolute, knowledge absolute, and bliss absolute. We have often and often read this called the losing of individuality and becoming a stock or a stone. He jets at scars that never felt a wound. I tell you, it's nothing of the kind. It is the happiness to enjoy the consciousness of this small body. It must be greater happiness to enjoy the consciousness of two bodies. The measure of happiness increasing with the consciousness of an increasing number of bodies. The aim, the ultimate of happiness being reached with it would become a universal consciousness. Therefore, to gain this infinite universal individuality, This miserable little prison individuality must go. Then alone can death cease when I am alone with life. Then alone can misery create when I am only one that happiness itself. Then alone can all errors cease when I am on with knowledge itself. And this is the necessary scientific conclusion. Science has proved to me that physical individuality is a delusion. That really my body is one little continuously changing body in an unbroken ocean of matter. And Aditya, unity is the necessary conclusion with my other counterpart soul. Since science is nothing but the finding of unity, as soon as science would reach perfect unity, it would stop from future progress because it would reach the goal. Thus, chemistry could not progress further when it would discover one element out of which all other could be made. Physics would stop when it would be able to fulfill its services in discovering one energy, of which all other and but manifestations. And the science of religion become perfect when it would discover Him who is the one life in a universe of death, Him who is the constant basis of ever changing world, one who is the only soul of which all souls are but delusive manifestations. Thus is it through multiplicity and duality. That's the ultimate unity is reached. Religion can go no farther. This is the goal of all science. All science is bound to come to this conclusion in the long run. Manifestations and not certain is the word of science today, and the Hindu is the only glad that what he has been cherishing in his bosom for ages is going to be taught in more forcible language and with further light from the latest conclusions of science. So, descendants win now from the aspiration of philosophy by the religion of the ignorant. At the very outset, I may tell you that there is no polytheism in India. In every temple, if one stand by and listen, one will find the worship applying to all attributes of God, including omnipotence to the images. It is not polytheism, nor would be the name of henotheism explain the situation. The rose called by any other name would smell as sweet. Names are not explanations. I remember as a boy hearing a Christian missionary preach to a crowd in India. Among other sweet things he was telling them was if he gave a blow to their idol with his stick, what could it do? One of the hearers sharply answered, if I abuse your God, what can he do? You would be punished, said the preacher, when you die. So my idol will punish you when you die, retorted the Hindu. The tree is knowing by its fruits. When I have seen amongst them that are called idolites, men the like of whom is mortality and spirituality, and love I have never seen anywhere. I stop and ask myself, can sin begin holiness? Superstition is a great enemy of a man, but piety is worse. Why does a Christian go to church? Why is the cross holy? Why is the face turned toward the skin as prayer? Why are there so many images in Catholic Church? Why there is so many images in the mind of Protestants when they pray? My brethren, we cannot no more think about anything without a mental image that we can live without breathing. By the law of association, the material image calls up the mental idea, and vice versa. This is why the Hindu use an external symbol when he worships. He will tell you it helps to keep his mind fixed on the being to whom he prays. He knows as well you do that the image is not God, is not omnipresent. After all, how much does omnipotence means to almost the whole world? It stands merely as a word. A symbol has God's superficial area. If not, when we repeat that word omnipresent, we think of the extended sky of space, that is all. As we find that somehow or other, by the law of our mental constitutions, we have to associate our ideas of infinity with the image of the blue sky, of the sea, so we naturally connect our ideas of holiness with the image of church, a mosque, or a cross. The Hindus have associated the idea of holiness, purity, truth, omnipotence, and such other ideas with the different image and forms, but with the difference that while some people devote their whole lives to their idols of a church and never rise higher, because with them religion means an intellectual ascent to certain doctrines and doing goods to their fellows. The whole religions of Hindu is certain in realization. Man is to become divine by realization the divine. Idols or temples and churches or books are only to support the helps of his spiritual childhood, but on and on he must progress. He must not stop anywhere. External worship, material worship, say the scripture, is the lowest stage, struggle to the rise high. Mental prayer is the next stage, but the higher stage is when the Lord has been realized. Mark the same earnest man who is kneeling before the idol tells you. Him the sun cannot express, nor the moon, nor the stars. The lightning cannot express him, nor what we speak of as fire. Though him they shine, but he does not abuse anyone's idol or call its worship sin. He recognizes in it a necessary stage of life. The child is father of the man. Would it be right for an old man to say that childhood is a sin or youth a sin? If a man can realize his divine nature with the help of an image, would be right to call that a sin, nor even when he has passed the stage, should he call it an error. To the Hindu, man is not traveling from error to truth, but from truth to truth, from lower to higher truth. To him, all the religions, from the lowest fetishism to the highest aboutalism, mean so many attempts of human soul to grasp and realize the infinite, each determined by the condition of its birth and association. And each of these marks a stage of progress, and every soul is a young eagle soaring higher and higher, gathering more and more strength till it reach the glorious sun. Unite in variety is a plan of nature, and the Hindu has recognized it. Every other religion lays down certain fixed dogmas and tries to force society to adopt them. It plays before society only one coat which must fit Jack and John and Henry all alike. It does not fit John or Henry. He must go without a coat to cover his body. The Hindus have discovered that the absolute can only be realized, or thoughts of, or stated through the relative, and the image, crosses, and crescents are simply so many symbols, so many pegged to hang the spiritual ideas on. It is not that this help is necessary for everyone, but those that do not need it have no right to say that it is wrong, nor is it compulsory in Hinduism. One thing I must tell you, idolatry in India does not mean anything horrible. It is not the mother of horrors. On the other hand, it is the attempt of undeveloped mind to grasp high spiritual truths. The Hindu have their faults. They sometimes have their exceptions, but mark this, they are always for punishing their own bodies and never for cutting the throats of their neighbors. In the Hindu, fanatic burns himself on the pyre. He never light the fire of inquisition. And even this cannot be laid at the door of the religion any more than the burning of witches can be laid at the door of Christianity. To the Hindu, then, the whole world of religion is only a traveling, a coming up of different men and women through various conditions and circumstances to the same goal. Every religion is only evolving a God out of the material man, and the same God is inspired for all of them. Why then there are so many contradictions? They are only apparent, says the Hindu. The contradictions come from the same truth, adopting itself to the varying circumstances of different natures. It is the same light coming through glasses of different colors, and these lights variations are necessary for purpose of adaptations. But in the heart of everything, the same truth region. The Lord has declared to the Hindu in his incarnation as Krishna. I am in every religion as the thread through a string of pearl. Wherever thou seest extraordinary holiness and extraordinary power raising and purifying humanity, know thou that I am there. I am what has been the result. I challenge world to find. throughout the whole system of Sanskrit philosophy, and such expressions as that the Hindu alone will be saved and not others. Vyasa said, "We find perfect men even beyond the pale of our caste and creed. One thing more, how then can the Hindu, whose whole fabric of thought centers in God, believe in Buddhism, which is agnostic, or Jainism, which is aesthetic? The Buddhists or the Jains do not depend upon God, but the whole force of their religion is directed to the great central truth in every religion, to evolve God out of men." Sorry. They have not seen the Father, but they have seen the Son. And he that hath seen the Son hath seen the Father also. This, brethren, is a short sketch of a religious idea of the Hindus. The Hindu may have failed to carry out of all the plans, but if there is ever to be a universal religion, it must be one which will have no location in place or time, which will be infinite like the God it will preach, and whose sun will shine upon the followers of Krishna and of Christ and saints and sinners alike, which will not be Brahmic or Buddhistic or Christian or Mohammed, but the sum total of all these, and still have infinite space for development, which is in catalytic will embrace in its infinite arms and find a place for every human being from the lowest groveling savage not far removed from the brute to the highest man towering by the virtues of his head and heart almost above humanity, making society stand in awe of him and doubts his human nature. It will be a religion which will have no place for percussions or intolerance in its polity, which will recognize divinity in every man and woman, and whose whole scope, whose whole force will be created in a humanity to realize its own true divine nature. Offer such a religion, and all the nations will follow you. Ashoka's council was a council of the Buddhist faith. Akbar, though more to the purpose, was only parlor meeting. It was reserved for America to proclaim all the quarter of the globe that the Lord is in every religion. May he who is the Brahm of the Hindus and Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians and the Buddha of Buddhists, the Jiva of Jewish, the Father in the heaven of the Christians, give strength to you to carry out your noble idea. The star arose in the east. It travelled steadily toward the west, sometimes dimmed and sometimes effulgent, till it made a circuit of the world. And now it is again rising on very origin of east, the border of the Sanpo, a thousandfold more effulgent than it ever was before. Motherland of liberty, Columbia, has been given to thee who never dip her hand in her neighbor's blood, who never found out the shortest way of becoming rich was by robbing one's neighbors. It has been given to thee to march at the vanguard civilization with the flag of harmony. Thank you guys, hope you like.